town at around 3:30.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Mission Roll Call Town Hall. I'm your host, Ray Whitaker. And of course, as always, we have Mr. Jim Whaley, the CEO of the organization. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great. The weather here in South Carolina is beautiful. Spring has sprung. We got so much stuff going on in the organization. I'm excited to talk about it. I just don't know how we're going to contain it in 1 hour.
Yeah, well, that's always the problem. I mean, because you love to talk. I mean, I
love
talk
to
that
talk.
much. It's 100% you. It's not me, by the way. All right. So the good part is we got a huge agenda today, as Jim just talked about. So we got a lot to cut through. And as always, we have a very, very impactful organization that we're going to be talking to this afternoon. I can't wait. I can't wait to bring them up and talk about them a little bit more. So that guest will be towards the end.
Such a cool organization.
Yeah.
So cool.
Okay, so veterans and family members, as always, we have our survey. It's currently live on the website, so you guys can go and visit that. We need you guys to take this. Remember, as always, we tell you this every single time that we have one of these. Your voice matters, and we need your voice to obviously ensure that there's change, right? So the survey for this month is highly focused on transition and kind of understanding the uncertainties that you had, right? So one of the things that I think many have is they think that they know what the problems are with what you're doing, but they may not truly understand that. So the only way you get that is directly from your voice. Jason, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Michael McDaniel, welcome in. Great to have you here, Roger. Good to see you, buddy. Also, our next monthly town hall is going to be on May 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. We only live in Eastern Standard Time here in Mission Roll Call. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we live on all of them. We live on all of them. I don't know. What do you think, Jim? Just Eastern Standard?
Well, we have some folks on the team that live in a different time zone, so we kind of have to.
Okay. Well, I guess leaders eat last. I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
If you have a question, as always, when we talk about these, do us a favor, post it in the wherever you are. So if you're on, Meta, you're on X, wherever you're watching this right now, post it in the comments. We talk about real things here, so we'd love to hear from you guys and also understand kind of where you're at with issues or things that we're discussing. So please do that. It's part of the reason that we have these, to have an open conversation with you guys. We take notes, and then of course we use that stuff for other stuff. All right, Jim. So man, what a month March was, right? I mean, we're already in April and it's still kind of a blur what's happened in April, but we sent out our operation recap. We had an opportunity. We had a lot of really, really interesting stuff that we did last month. And I tried to think about go through and pull each one of them and look at them and see what all of them were. But there's just really, honestly, too much to put all of it here. So we'll have Nate pull up, if you don't mind, Nate, pull up the articles for the operation recap so we can look at it. Big thing here, Jim, for March, we talked to a veteran-owned business, Service to Semper Suds. We had an opportunity to have multiple articles on unhoused and homeless veterans and basically their journey from, living on the streets to back to successfully owning their life, their business, and all of that. We had multiple stories on women veterans. We had women veterans and their impact on care. And then we also had 9 strategies to improve comprehensive care for women veterans. And last but not least, we also chatted with the Rick Herma Foundation last month. So Jim, I wanted to ask you just kind of from the start, how important is it to you and what the organization is doing, speaking about organizations and then speaking to individuals such as veterans?
Yeah. So if you think about our organization, the Voice of Veterans, it's much more than just a poll or a survey. It's really that rich content, that storytelling, sharing the challenges that veterans have when they make a transition, when they start a business, when they're homeless and have to make a process to get out of that homelessness. It just is very helpful, I think, to see us as a community trying to help each other, connecting the dots of all these different organizations as well, and then seeing how just one of us can make an impact in our community by just rolling up our sleeves and getting involved. I mean, those stories are compelling. They are heartfelt, and I think they have such an impact, at least for me and the people I share it with. I'll send the article to somebody and say, hey, I was thinking about you when I read this article. And then the note you always get back is, wow, thanks so much. And I read this article and I read that article, and I think it's wonderfully, it's a mosaic really of our community. And a veteran is, from every walk of life. They're part of the fabric of the country. So it's not just one person in one ecosystem, it's the whole system. And so people come from it from different perspectives and different social economic backgrounds and different phases of their life. So I think that content, those stories, and sharing that with everybody is just so impactful. And even though I know the story, because we've talked to the people personally, when I read the story, I'm impacted again. So I would urge everybody to read that and share it with each other.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part. Every time that we do a story or we talk to an organization, I've lived life with this idea that you really don't know everything, right? You can always learn something. But man, it's how true that is as you talk to folks and you think you understand a problem or an area or whatever it is, and then you talk to somebody and you realize that that's just one perception of your own reality that may not be the basis of how somebody else sees it. And I think that's what I'm most thankful for. What we do every single day is trying to get those stories out, tell those stories in a meaningful way, like you're doing all the time through earned media, Fox and CNNs and MSNBCs and all of them, to make sure folks understand. And then of course, what Mike and you are doing from an advocacy perspective, and then what the team is doing at the local level. So I agree, man, that March is in April. I know is going to be even more. We have even more coming. So I'm really excited to see kind of how things pan out here. As we're continually growing and moving faster as an organization.
Yeah. I think the other thing, and I know we got a lot to talk about, but I think the other thing I take from all of those stories is that I think everybody can relate to those stories in some way, shape, or form. So even though you're not homeless, you can relate to that journey that person is going on, or someone starting a business, or somebody caring for somebody and the impact that has on the family. All of that we can relate to. So that's the other part of this that I think is so impactful, meaningful, and has something that for everybody really to read and understand.
Yeah. Well, I think that the big part for me is for those that are watching, this, positivity is infectious. I've in my whole life, I feel like that's just, something that you do. And hearing somebody's story, sometimes it's just good to the soul. It's nice to know that, your problems aren't always the hardest problems in the world. Somebody's always there's always somebody that has a heart. That's right.
Right. Puts it in perspective, brother.
That's right. Okay. So the other thing, Jim, that we had, we talked a little bit about it last time that we had this. We talked about the honor wall. So the honor wall has, it launched. We launched that kind of in what I would say beta at the end of last year to see this was really focused on honoring veterans, their courage, their sacrifice, and their dedication to what they're doing, and then to share their story. So for those that are here in the chat, that the team will put up a link for everybody on the platforms across. We would love for you guys to come and share a story of a friend, a loved one, whoever it is. The one thing we talk about here in the organization is we understand Veterans Day is one day a year, but for us, we think about veterans. So Jim, I know that this was one of your initiatives that you really wanted to do, is to honor, give a hub of veterans in general. Love you just to kind of give a basics or an understanding of why this is so important to honor veterans this way.
Yeah. If you think about all the freedoms we enjoy, all the blessings we have in our life, and you think about people that have gone before us, generations that made that all happen, I think all of us want to honor that and not forget that. And I think Veterans Day kind of gets lost in all the holidays, right? And all the days that we have as a nation. This is an easy way to take a picture of a grandparent or mom or dad or a brother or sister and put it on this wall just to honor them. And it's there and forever, right? And you can share that with family members. And it's fun to just go through some of those old photos. I was going through some folks I served with many years ago and looked at those photos, took a picture, and then, posted it. And I think, and then send them a note and say, hey, I was thinking about you, and I put this up. I think it's important as a nation that we always remember what our veterans have done, but we as veterans certainly own that space, and we have to make sure that we remember that and share that with our family members, with our neighbors, in a way that shows that we take pride in our service and we take pride in other people's service, and we love talking about what you did and what they did. And I know when I go around and I see somebody with a cap on Korean War or World War II or Vietnam, I reach out to them. I talk to them. I want to know about them. And it's amazing the connections and the camaraderie you get with them just in a few minutes.
That's right.
So this is a way to do it digitally so we can share it across the space. And so I would just urge everybody, just take a few minutes. Easy to do. If I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. So it's easy to post a picture up there and honor somebody.
Yeah. And Henry W. had a question. Can anyone add bets to the honor wall? The answer to that question is absolutely. In fact, Henry, we'd love you to do is, we've got the link up here. We'll post it on some of the social platforms also. I think they've already done that, so you guys can find it. There'll be a QR code. But please share that also, right? Our goal is there's 18 million. My goal just in life is if we had 18 million veterans being on the honor wall, that would make me very happy, right? We have a lot of folks that have given their time and their service to our great nation, and we surely want to make sure that we're demonstrating that we care about them and we appreciate everything that they've done. It drives us every day as an organization, just like it does all veteran service organizations. So yes, anybody can submit onto that thing. Okay, Jim, the other thing, so we talk about Veterans Day, right? There's a lot of misunderstanding, I think, just in general, the difference between a Veterans Day and like Memorial Day and then which one's which, right? So we, along with having Veterans Day again is really meant for veterans in general. So let's celebrate the fact that they've done their part for our nation. The other thing that we have right now that's in beta, that's going to be releasing here shortly, is our memorial wall. Right. Now the memorial wall is very much meant to honor military service members who lost their life while in service. That's the primary focus of this wall. So this is kind of a quick look. You know how we like to release things here and show you guys what we're doing. Again, very much like Veterans Day, Memorial Day for those of us that have lost friends, in combat or training or wherever through service. There's not a day that we don't think about them ever. There's not a time that I don't think about them. There's not a time that their family doesn't think about them. So for us, the real gist of the memorial wall is, again, thanking them and letting them know that we never forget, because we won't. And we want to make sure that we, again, are focused on them. I don't know, Jim, if you had any final comments on that.
No, you hit it, Ray. I mean, I just think this is so important as a country, for family, for all of us to just never forget that. And to take a picture or photo of somebody and put it up on the memorial wall is just a way to show that testimony that you have for that person, the honor of being on that wall. And I'll tell you, I think all of us that have known somebody that has passed away on active duty, as you mentioned, either in training or in a war zone, it doesn't leave you. You remember it the rest of your life. And there's little things that make you remember it, right? Yeah. So I think this is a wonderful way as an organization for us to do that. And so I would urge everybody to participate in that, especially if you have somebody that is a family that has just kind of lost the ability to really think about that. They've kind of put it in the back. If you can reach out to that family and say, hey, this is something we'd like to do, I mean, you'll feel great about doing that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll have this live. As soon as we have it live, we'll share it on social. So you guys that are out there will know what it is, because we'd love to have you guys do that. Okay. So here in the organization, we talk kind of like a pyramid. So that's kind of how we look at everything from an organizational view. Of course, you got the veterans at the tippity top, right? They're at the end of the spear, we'll call it, or the top of the pyramid. And then off to the bottom right, you have our congressional leaders, decision makers, right? Not just in the congressional, but also city, state, county, because we do think about them as well. And then on the far left, you have veteran service organizations and other MPOs. This year, Jim, one of the things you asked the team to do is be very focused on the VSO MPO side, because we're moving very, very quickly with the veteran side. We want to start creating this connection, collaboration, and strengthening of VSOs and MPOs, especially where they are at the local community level. Right. So we just hosted one of those, and I'd love to show the sizzle for that, like kind of video that we put together. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our symposium. So Nate.
first and foremost is to make sure that we are reaching out to veterans and their families. We're starting here in Fayetteville. We're doing these symposiums now across the country. The idea is to get the voices of veterans through the leadership of different organizations that represent veterans across the country. So veterans and their families go to different VSOs for different purposes. This is the leadership of those organizations. We bring them together, we share ideas, we collaborate. There's a lot of opportunity for us to work together, share sources, share information. We're really horses pulling the same wagon, but sometimes we go off and we don't work with each other as well as we could. This is an attempt to bring that together. There's a lot of energy in this room. A lot of people are excited by this. We started the day off with listening to them, talking about what they're facing, what are they seeing in their communities, and then sharing that among each other, finding where the commonalities are, but more importantly, finding out where the gaps are. Where can we go in and fix those things, or at least mitigate it? And that's where a lot of energy has been found. And so we're excited about it. I think everybody here is excited about it. It has a lot of potential to really make a difference. And you know, if you think about it, everybody here represents some sector of the military community, either active duty or veteran. All of them in their prior life worked together, and now they're in different VSOs, and it's just bringing them back home to working together.
Man, what a video. So well, first off, what an amazing event. I think we had close to 25 different organizations that were in the room with us. We obviously did it here in North Carolina. There's Scott Meinhardt. In fact, Scott, thank you so much for coming out and helping. You know, we have always talked, Jim, about this idea that if you truly want to impact veterans, you know, organizations have got to come together and they've got to collaborate and connect to make that impact stronger. That doesn't mean individuals can't win a basketball game. Doesn't mean that, you know, an individual can't have be the person that's helping the team win. But having a team means that you can go longer and harder and faster and make things a little bit clearer. So I would love to ask you, Jim, from your perspective, what was like the most important thing that you kind of got out of the MPO symposium?
Well, I think the most important thing I got out of it was everybody recognized there's gaps that we're missing as organizations. And the only way we're going to fill those gaps is working together. All of us don't have the scope or the financial abilities to do everything that is needed to be done, but together we do. So I think it's very important that we continue to build on this moment. There was so much energy at that meeting, but more importantly, there was so much energy after the meeting. You know, when we finished the meeting, a lot of times when you finish even 1-day conference or a 2-day conference or something like that, everyone heads for the doors. They got to get back. They're getting their cars. They're catching a plane. People stuck around. No one left. They wanted to continue the conversation. So that indicated to me that we're really onto something. I think it's powerful when we work together. And like I said in the video, all of us in the service, no matter what service you were in, you had to work together as teams. And you weren't, it wasn't about one person. It wasn't about one unit or even one branch. It's about working together to get the mission done. And I think we've kind of drifted away from that to some extent with all these different VSOs that we have across the country really coming together. So there was a lot of energy. I think a lot of people saw that they could learn from each other. I think every one of us came away energized. We all learned something. We all something that we wanted to get more involved in. So I think if we can continue those across the country, I think we're really onto something. And then think about it. When we go to Congress or go to the Senate and we talk about key veterans issues, we usually have a polling or a survey data that we can share with them that validates what we're talking about, because that's what we used to talk about. The other aspect of that is talking to senior leaders across all those VSOs and tapping into their knowledge as well and sharing what their opinions are collectively. I mean, you can imagine the impact we'd have when we go into testifying in front of the House Veterans Affairs Committee or the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, if we're not only representing X amount of veterans, but also a multiplier amount of veterans that are in other VSOs. I think that's incredibly powerful, and it's mutually beneficial to all of those folks that are involved in. And in fact, Congress and Senate welcome it because they sometimes struggle with getting the correct information. So by us being able to do that, I think is extremely powerful.
Yeah. And we talk a lot. We've talked a lot. I mean, obviously you and I worked together for a very long time. It feels not just inside of here, but other locations. And,
Yeah.
there's this common theme where, um, organizations have to understand that like there's 18 million veterans, right? And there's always this, like from our perspective, no one VSO is ever going to be able to support all 18 because all of us are different. What I enjoy doing is different than what you enjoy doing versus the next veteran, the next veteran, the next veteran. And part of being a veteran service organization is meeting the veteran where they are versus trying to get them to come to you. And that's a hard thing for VSOs and just nonprofits in general to understand. But we have real issues and real problems that we need to be focused on, right? Because much of what we see on a daily basis truly is life or death. Or it's a care, access to care. It's, how they feel daily. It's a mental challenge. It's, because much of this comes from our time in combat or time inside of the military. So I think there's a lot there to be discussed. Jerry, you asked the question, how can my MPO join? Jason, thank you so much for doing it. And for everybody else that's here, if you're from an MPO or a nonprofit or a veteran service organization, and I did say both on purpose, okay, because there are VSO identifications, right? And then there's nonprofits that you probably don't know that you're supporting veterans also because they're part of your recipients, but you're just a nonprofit. We want to hear from you. So if you're in an area that's supporting veterans and their families, reach out to us. Jason put his information here so that you guys can find it. Here it is on the screen. Send him an email, grab a hold of you, and we'll get you guys there. So Keith asked a question here. Jim, I'm gonna push this over to you. What is discussed when you are representing veterans in front of Congress?
Well, a lot of it, that's a great question because it changes on occasion depending upon the bill that may be in front of them. So access to healthcare, suicide reduction, homelessness, it depends on what's being discussed. Usually we have a sense of what's coming on the agenda due to some good work on the team. And then we were able to put some survey or data together to be able to go and present and discuss that with them with details. And I think it's very much welcomed by senior leadership, including at the highest levels of the Senate and Congress and the VA. What are veterans thinking about? What do they want? What are their opinions on these subjects? And we'll be able to share that with them. So I hope that answers the question. It just changes throughout the calendar year and what's on the agenda for the House Veterans Affairs Committee. That's where it normally starts. And then we go from there. And the other aspect, we get invited sometimes to talk to the VA secretary and his staff, and we'll sit at a round table with a couple other organizations, and there'll be a topic, and we'll be able to share with them what we're hearing. I think where we stand far apart is we are nonpartisan and apolitical. It's not my opinion. It's not Ray's opinion. It's really the opinion of all of you that are taking the polls, that are hearing what we have. And I'll tell you something, we talked about it earlier. I'm so glad you started the call with it, Ray. You can tell he and I don't rehearse these things. But when we started with the content and the stories that we have, we send those things to key people.
That's right.
And let them get involved and see it and read it and absorb those stories and the impacts of some of these challenges that veterans have. I mean, a number is great. Having statistics is needed, but the story of somebody trying to get out of homelessness and then going through that's powerful. And sharing that about somebody starting a business and why they started that business and how they transitioned, it helps everybody understand that they're not alone.
That's right.
The struggles they're having or the challenges that they're having, someone else is going through it as well. And if there's any way that you can learn from reading these stories, I think it's helpful.
Yeah. And for those of you that are here, this is why we're always asking for you guys to take the surveys. Surveys are going to probably take you 2 to 5 minutes to take. Some of the questions are not the easiest to read, right? Because many of the bills and legislation and the questions we're asking, it's formulated by our team to make sure we're not leaning you one direction or the other, right? We're getting the data that's really required to provide. Because again, we're not changing what you're saying. You know, what you guys reply, I mean, we're about to show you. So not only are you hearing us talk about the MPO symposium and the importance here and how we're doing it, we're about to go into what we provided the VA from your comments. So anyway, Jim, so the big part, MPO symposium, for this perspective, somebody asked in here about the next one's going to be in Georgia. That's going to be in June. We'll be releasing the date here soon. For anybody that is interested, Jason is their first point of contact, because you need to be onboarded onto the Veteran Resource Directory, right? There's a process for that. We make sure that the folks that we bring onto the team want to impact veterans. They are impacting veterans and all of that. And then as we create the MPO symposium, we send out invites. So this is not kind of like a join and you show up thing. This is a, hey, become part of the team. Let veterans know that you care about them, because we're sharing this constantly. This is why we bring MPOs onto to town hall, and we're constantly doing blogs and articles and stuff about them. Right. Our responsibility is to make sure veterans can find what they need as quickly as possible. Okay, Jim. So now we want to move a little bit into, and I suspect that this will take a little bit of our time today. So kind of talked about it really quickly before we came into this one. We want to talk a little bit about the deep dive, the VA performance survey that was basically in February. So February, Mike and team put together a phenomenal survey, had a lot of really interesting questions up. So Nate, if you don't mind pulling this up so we can kind of read through this. Yeah. So of the questions, Jim, I'm just going to kind of read through these and we'll kind of go from point to point. So the first one was, which VA services have you or someone you know used in the past 12 months? Before we talk about the primary care and the answers, one thing that people may not understand, Jim, is that not everybody utilizes VA care, and they also may not understand why not all veterans use VA care. Do you mind just kind of talking about that a little bit? Because I know you're often in discussions or in front of Congress and stuff like that, explaining that not everybody has access because they're not eligible and stuff like that.
Right. And so when you look at the aggregate number, the big number, it's less than half the veterans that we have in the country are eligible for VA care. And that's because they don't have a certain amount of disability to participate in VA healthcare system. So that's why the numbers are a little off sometimes when you look at the total number of veterans that are participating in healthcare. That said, I think because of some of the bills that have recently passed, that number is increasing. So the eligibility has improved for veterans to be part of the VA healthcare system. And so that's part of the things that we're doing when we talk about bills and we talk about polling, that we're able to use that to shape what the scope that the VA can do and the amount of veterans that they can serve. And they want to serve more veterans. So there's a process of working through Congress and Senate to do that. So yeah, and then there's a certain amount of people that didn't participate in the VA just for whatever reason. And from a personal story, I didn't participate in VA services, and it was a team member. We were at an offsite and we were talking about the VA, and somebody asked me, well, like, where do you go? And I said, I don't. I've used TRICARE. And then so the challenge from the team was, well, you should probably go through it, Jim, to at least know what veterans are going through. And I said, you're exactly right. I should do that. And I did. And then all of a sudden I'm part of the VA system because I had more problems than I thought I had. So I think, and I share that because I know there's somebody listening that's in the same boat. Yep. And if it changes one person to be able to go to the VA and find out that maybe they've been exposed to things, or maybe they have issues that they're unaware of, then so be it. That's good that they'll get the health care that they need.
Yeah. And I think that there's importance. So you mentioned the 9 mil. I want to make sure that nobody mistakes what you were saying there with, you got the 18 mil, 9 mil of those, 9 million, half somewhere in their realm, right? We never know exact numbers, but that, whatever that half is either not eligible, they've decided not to go for VA, or they don't even know that they're eligible for the VA. Like, so there's a very large, and it's partly what the VA and the other organizations are trying to get veterans to understand is, hey, like, you may be eligible, at least come in, walk in, bills have changed, legislation has changed, requirements have changed, all of that, so that you guys can get an opportunity to even see if you're eligible. So that's the first part of this. The second part, Jim, what you kind of hit on there was from a normal perspective of an individual, oftentimes the public thinks, disability is like, hey, veteran gets disability. Well, the reason that you go through the VA process to begin with is for care, to make sure that anything that happened to you while you were in service, when you start to have these flare-ups and that are going to happen, I don't care who you are, jumping out of an airplane with a rucksack that weighs over 100 pounds, slamming into the ground is not natural, right? This is not natural.
Good. Yeah.
And that's just one of so many things that we could talk about, right? So all of these things, part of this process with the VA is to make sure you come in and they can see that they're documenting, making sure they have all of these things. Hey, where did you deploy to? Oh, wow, you went to this country. Well, wow, this country has the propensity to have malaria and all these things, right? Like this is not normal, but it's part of any person that's in a job that would be at a high risk job, right? Would expect that somebody would be looking out for them long term, because there's definitely going to be medical issues that arise. That's first and foremost the reason why veterans in general should be focused on going in and seeing the VA, is to make sure that it's documented. Out of that, they now look at your quality of care. They look, this is where the adjudicator, all the folks start to come in and start to have these conversations and looking at everything, range of motion and all of that, to figure out, hey, is it impacting you already? Are you the same as another 40-year-old when we put you side by side based off of your time in service and everything else? So there's really a lot that happens here with disability, and we want folks to make sure that they are moving towards this point and doing it.
Exactly.
Heather wrote, well, it takes 6 months to get an appointment most of the time, and then when you do, the care is subpar anyway. Yeah, and look, the one thing we've learned inside of this organization, Jim talked about this a little bit more, from our perspective, it's like going to a restaurant, and I don't mean to equate these, but hopefully you understand why I'm saying this. If you go to a Chick-fil-A one location, you go to another, there's a good chance that just because this Chick-fil-A is good doesn't mean the other one is going to be bad also, right? They have different leadership. There's a whole bunch of things that go into this. The VA is a very large system. The best thing you can do as a veteran or a family member when you have issues is report it, right?
Yep.
The VA cares about your health. That's the one thing that we've learned through our time of bringing your comments to them, your surveys and everything else, is that they care, right? We can't guarantee we don't, like, our connectivity with the VA is simple. We give them data and make sure that they know what you guys think. But at the end of the day, you got to report it. If you're having problems, you're not seeing it in time, then you report it in, or you come to organizations like ours, American Legion, VFW, these other organizations that are very much focused on making sure that you receive the care that you need. Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you go to one VA, you've gone to one VA. So
that's a good way to say it.
So, I mean, there are some VAs that are outstanding, and there's some that are in need of improvement. And so I do feel that Secretary Collins and his staff has been very open to hearing about those issues. They haven't been defensive with us when we've brought up issues that are going on. In fact, we shared with them one unique issue that was happening in the Tampa area, and they were on it in 24 hours and changed a whole policy that affected hundreds, maybe thousands of veterans. And they acted very quickly. And that was just because one of our teammates got on it. So I think all of us it comes right full circle. Our voice has to be heard.
That's right.
And the only way you can improve, it's the largest healthcare system in the world. If you look at the number of employees in the VA, it's larger than the United States Army. So you can imagine the challenge of turning that, of changing that whole kind of an institution. Takes a little time. I'm not defending them. There's some areas that they need to get on right now, and there's no excuse for it. But I think the only way things get fixed is to voice your opinion. Use organizations like us. They see our surveys, they react to our surveys. And so that's the whole reason we're here, is to improve the quality of life of veterans across the country through a variety of ways, making sure our voices are heard at the highest level, bringing organizations together to help each other as a group of people.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Hopefully, Heather, hopefully that gives, but just voice
and
it.
let us know, Heather, how we can be helpful. If
Yeah, please.
anyway,
Yeah.
we'll.
Okay, so we can pull that back up, Nate, just so we can go over a couple more of these. We had some other really good questions here that kind of came out of this, Jim. We talked a little bit about, so first and foremost, we talk about the services people use. Primary care is still leading the kind of pack here. So the majority of folks that's where they're at. We have some folks, I think Heather's probably talking about this. That would be a question, Heather, too. Was your primary care or was it specialty care that you were having problems seeing? But what we've noticed on our side, it's the specialty care usually has the longest lag time. But for folks that were doing it, primary care, specialty care, and community care, those are the three main things that folks are using. And then you still have a couple other parts here that are kind of filtering in with, mental health care, caregiver, education benefits, and many other things. So it's very interesting to see how this outlined. We also asked like 2 years ago, right? We always like to look back and go, okay, hey, what were you doing? So compared to 2 years ago, how frequently are you using VA services today? And it looks like everybody's using them about the same. So no big. The thing I did like about this though is, 2 years ago, 3% we're not even using the VA services, which you were talking about. I mean, you're that 2%, Jim. Like you're one of those.
I was that 2% for sure.
And Blake hit it on the head. Blake, you said it eloquently. That's the way I probably should have said it. At the end of the day, a veteran or a patient, you have to be the squeaky wheel for your own care. Absolutely. Nobody's going to take care of you like you. So all you can do is your part. So Blake, thank you for that. That's very well put. Appreciate that. We also have, do you currently rely on VA as your primary source of healthcare? 73% said yes, 26% said no. And then we have a couple that's not applicable. Okay, go ahead and go to the next page, Nate. This is kind of like, hey, what is their experiences rate? As you kind of go across for the Department of Veteran Affairs over the past year, this indicates whether each area has gotten better, stayed about the same, or gotten worse. So overall VA performance, about the same, right? And we have a pretty large piece here, net positive. You can see that they put in here for better. So about 38% said that they've had a better time than they did before. And it's like anything, you're still going to have some locations that need work. All we can hope is that this continues to go. Timeliness of care looks like that's getting better. So about the same for most, but there is better for that. Net positive about 21%. Access to mental health care, which I think is probably one of the most important things, right? If you need health with your mental wellness, then that needs to be a priority. 29% is there. And then you've got about a 7% net positive that's kind of happened there, with 16% being better. We're still seeing pretty expansive days as far as mental wellness or mental health type specialty appointments. But I suspect that they're probably working on that on their side. Quality of care received, good news, about the same or better, right? 27% net positive. Staffing and continuity. This was, kind of, again, if you go back to news, you read the news, a lot of doom and gloom sometimes about what we're reading. This is an example, like this is why we love coming to you guys, veterans and families, because you're the ones going to the VA. So it's nice to hear you talk to us about what they're seeing. So staffing and continuity, about the same for most. So almost 50%, a little bit less. Better is 28%. But we do have a worse 22%. So again, that's something that we'll probably see us dig into a little bit more to see exactly what that means. And then finally, community care experience. We know that right now it seems like there's a pretty vocal piece focused on community care and what we're providing. That would make sense here because a lot of the stuff we had to do before was a much longer wait to go to the VA. Then you got to talk to your primary care. Then you got to go to and then by the time finally you get to community care, they've taken out some of that process to make it a little bit more streamlined, a little bit faster. So I'm kind of happy here to see that community care is a little bit better. And this is really important for those that are in the underserved areas, rural, things like that don't have a VA facility. They count on community care to be their medical treatment. This is good to see, but we definitely still got some work.
And we testified about this using polling. If you remember that the big poll that we did showed that 87% of veterans wanted access to healthcare when and where and how they needed it. And that number was very impactful in the hearings.
Yeah.
Shaping some of the decision of those that thought that everything needed to go through the VA, that it wasn't going to be the end of the world if you allowed veterans to get health care at a local facility, that wasn't going to take away funding from the VA, that the priority should be what is best for veterans.
Yeah. Well, the good news, so a lot of really good news here. I mean, well, just good news, meaning veterans got their voices come in. So we thank Mike and Roger on the team for, putting this stuff together, Mike for delivering this over to the VA. And as always, we want to, and for everybody that's watching today, if you haven't already, go take our survey for April, but we do appreciate you guys for taking the one in February. Continue to do that. Your voice matters. Super important. Just like I think Blake was mentioning earlier, part of the reason we want your voice is because the only person that understands what you've lived through is your experiences, right? So we need everybody's experiences to do the best we can here.
Be the squeaky wheel. That's
right. Be the squeaky wheel. We're going to put that on the website. Is that trademark, Blake? Can we use that? Okay, we're good on this part, Nate. Jim, so my favorite part of these things is really bringing on our guest, because we get an opportunity, man, just to meet such important organizations that are out doing such great work. Today's organization is focused on the healing powers of the ocean. So if you don't like sharks, you probably won't be out there, but you can probably hear a story or two. But they use the power of the ocean to restore hope, renew purpose, and revitalize the community. The best way to talk about an organization, in my opinion, is to talk to veterans. What are veterans saying about the organization? So let me say what veterans have said. So one veteran said, Operation Surf has literally changed my outlook on life. It has given me the tools to live better. Another veteran said, I feel like for the first time in a long time, I am the most emotionally and mentally equipped to deal with things. We know that having adrenaline-based positive things in your life, dogs, horses, skydiving, surfing, whatever those things are, positive memories are a great way to support your mental wellness. Amen. So I'm super happy, Jim, today to be inviting Van onto the town hall, the founder and director of Operation Surf, an organization devoted to changing veterans' lives through surfing. Van, how are you?
I'm blessed. Thank you for the opportunity to come share our story about our organization.
Yeah, well, we've had a relationship now, I think, for almost a year and a half. It's like a long time. I was watching the podcast, watching all the, and then of course we talked about Jake, one of my buddies, that was part of y'all's team, and he went through a long time ago. So he's an amputee, and he went through your program, and I saw the change in him from that. So I'd love, first and foremost, Van, for you, can you tell the viewers just a little bit about Operation Surf?
Well, yeah, Operation Surf is just it's a platform and opportunity for people to get to a place to experience the ocean. And the ocean is like this powerless environment that we have to, realize that, we can't control it. And it's a metaphor for life and a lot of different things, And so when we bring that opportunity through surfing to have fun, exercise, and then build community through, sharing the opportunity with, other veterans, in some cases their spouses, they've been able to build relationships, not only with themselves and with Mother Nature, the ocean, and their family and their community. So, there's so much about Operation Surf, but it's really about building relationships.
Yeah. And there's almost I remember having a conversation because, we find the humor in everything. Obviously veterans do, but you and I were talking about, just sharks and like the concern that folks have. And then really, is the shark the metaphor for just really not wanting to go in the ocean and learn something new because that's the easiest way to not do it, is because there's sharks out there. But realistically, it may just be that mental block just in life. And I'd love for you, I know we had a conversation about that, but I'd love for you to kind of talk about that just a little bit.
I'm not sure what I told you then, but what I'm going to say now is it's just like the experiences that triggered thought and responses. Is the shark story is very scary. And so when we focus on the scary part of it, it's like, that's all the energy that you're getting. But if you really look at stats and really look at how infrequent and how rare the actual shark attack is, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
But, the shark itself, just like other problems, give us a reason not to do something. So it depends how you want to look at things. You could look at it in a negative way. Your guys were talking about it earlier, is that the positive, generates positivity. And so the negative actually generates negativity. So, so it's just about telling stories. Like you guys were talking about so many things. My mind was like going in so many different directions from the start of this show, is because a lot of what you guys are talking about is a lot about my experience, and it's a lot about, the curriculum that we do at Operation Surf. So,
yeah. And it's true and tested for you guys, right? Like, so I find myself lucky because I talk about a guy named Don Lagoon. I met him. He's a fabulous guy. I mean, he's an older gentleman, and he's been struggling with, mental health for decades. Right. One of the things he said to me, that this is off script, so I'm sorry, Van, but one of the things that he said, I was going to grab the book, and then the Jim would beat me later for doing that. But he talked about this idea of like adrenaline based. And that's kind of why I brought it up at the beginning. He was talking about how hard it was for him, that like all he could think about was things that had happened to him in life that were negative, and it always took him to a negative place. But when he started realizing that if he could do adrenaline based things that were outside of that, things like surfing that may be uncomfortable, it's not something that I would do every day, that the change that he saw in himself didn't mean that it doesn't just go away, but it creates this thought process of, you can control it. You've just got to learn how, just like you're learning to surf, you just have to kind of in that ebbs and flow. And I think that that's much of what I've learned from folks that I've talked to with your site, John, many of the others. And if you guys have not watched the podcast, I'm telling you, of all the podcasts that we've done, and I think Nate will agree, we've done a lot of great. So I say this with sincerity, that podcast,
was moving.
If you ever wonder what organizations are doing to change people's life, you need to go listen to that podcast, right? Yeah. Organizations, VSOs and MPOs, they have a purpose and they can change lives. But I don't know what you think about that, Van, if you've seen that through people that have come through the program.
Well, yes, because we've had onlookers. We don't really have psychologists and psychiatrists embedded into our program, because it's, I'm not from the military. I'm a former pro surfer that started all of this from my recovery from addiction. And I realized a lot of the traits and the mindsets and the beliefs and my outlook about life, living dangerously and barely pulling it off, was a lot about the military's life too, And so I was relating to the people that started coming to the program. But what I did learn through some of their comments, and it says it in our documentary Resurface on Netflix, it says you can rewrite your story. And so, so when we get gripped by an experience, it really limits a lot of our willingness to do something different because of these thoughts, this perspective that we have. And that's what's so cool about Operation Surf, is because we have a peer-to-peer environment. And so storytelling, you guys were talking about storytelling, it builds connection, which is absolutely important, is because one of the things about it is it's, we share the mess, but we also share the message. It's like, this is what I'm dealing with, but this is what I'm doing to right that situation, which is exactly what we're talking about. Is like, if you can participate in something like Operation Surf and learn to experience something that can bring joy, that can give you and empower you with the self-efficacy that you could do something that you never thought you can do. And once you have that, it empowers you to face other things. And so that is rewriting your story.
That's right.
And so, the experience about it is surfing's hard because the ocean, there's no timeouts in the ocean.
That's right.
You have to embrace and learn to read and flow with the energy of the ocean and apply your energy to flow with it in order to have, that synchronicity to it, to experience that joy. But a lot of the cases, a lot of our veterans love the destruction that surfing brings, like the wipeout, the tossing and turning, a big wave coming, and so there's so many different elements that is really relative to the story that you were just telling, is because we can rewrite our story.
Yeah.
In a
No,
positive.
I love that. Heather
Yeah.
asked, not a silly question, Heather, by the way, but she asked for Operation Surf, can you learn to surf if you don't know how to swim? So is that something that you guys look at?
Yes. Well, it's a question we ask because obviously, we ask also, do you have any fears?
Mm.
And how many people say
Yeah.
no? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not scared, right?
Yeah.
But we've had people come that couldn't swim. So we have professional surf instructors that really understand like the process of building that trust and that self-worth with somebody. And so we can do that in shallow waters to where all you really have to do is just stand up if you fall.
Okay.
Do you need to know how to swim to stand up? No. But do you need courage to do something that is seemingly impossible to yourself because you have this thing that you can't swim, so I can't do this? It's just think about it in your life. We have all kinds of reasons why we don't do something because I have this. But the reality is, it's like, our limitations, it lies within here. We just have to be willing.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, that's
Right.
that's such a great point. What type of, I mean, I know we're bouncing all over the place, but what type of impact are you primarily seeing from what you guys are doing? Because we talk about surfing. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of stuff. Like it's really easy just to focus, but surfing is like not the whole program. You talk about connection and the message. Like there's a lot that goes into what you guys are doing. What are you guys seeing from what you're doing in general?
I guess some of the, we've been working with retired, injured combat veterans for like, almost, 19 years now. And so I've learned a lot, but mixed in there has been some active duty special mission units. And what I've really found that once we get the participant, the warrior in our program, they get an opportunity to decompress and let go of a lot of things in their life. And that's one of the things that I always tell about, in our program, is because one of the most important things in our organization is vulnerability. And I lead off typically with, as the founder, that, I'm a recovering drug addict, but I haven't had a drink or a drug since December 16th, 2002. And so I open up in the very beginning with stuff that you typically don't tell people. But I'm no longer shameful for my experiences because I use my experiences to help other people with the feelings and the emotions that are attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Operation Surf is just like, I lost my track of my train.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay.
that's good.
Yeah.
It's just an opportunity that that their outcome typically happens because they only have, I'm going to go surfing. And then we have all this curriculum processes in this week-long thing to build this opportunity for us to basically have conversation.
Yeah.
And we have an element of people coming back because I realize that like-minded people will listen to like-minded people more than someone like, for instance, I'm not in the military, right? But once they learn about my mentality and how I live my life, they go, yeah, you would have been a good warrior. And I'm like, well, I would like to think so, but that's why I was a big wave surfer. Like I had that, I am on it.
Living on the edge. Yep.
Living on the edge, and I will accomplish anything that's put in front of me. Yeah. But the biggest thing about it is like once you get those people together to do those stuff, led by someone that they can relate to. That's why our combat, military warriors, we put them with combat warriors together, so the combat people understand like this person has experienced something I had, and then when that person that has been here before them is sharing their experience with us when they were in their shoes, then they're more likely to hear and trust the person that they relate to more than me saying, oh, you're going to enjoy your time. Yeah. Trust our people, and one of the biggest things that we've learned about the experience of the warriors is once they come into our program, they see the honesty and the vulnerability and our willingness to share our own journeys, but share our own solutions, which then once they start telling their challenges, then it gives permission for the next person. And one of the coolest things about us is like, we're not affiliated with the military.
That's right.
So they're not protecting their folder, so to speak. You know what I mean? All they're protecting is their ego and their pride.
Yeah, that's true.
Once someone lowers that, that bar, you're in a good place to let it go. The stuff that comes out is actually the healing part of it. And that's actually what happens to our participants. They get involved in an environment and where they see the honesty and the vulnerability and the people willing to share the struggles that's going on, between the ears. Yeah. And while they're doing it, they're having fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And when you have fun and realize you can smile and laugh again, and a lot of them, we have statements that, that we allowed them to realize that they needed this and they didn't even know they needed it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so when you really create platforms or opportunities for people, you have to say yes, though. There's two sides.
We see this a lot in homelessness. It's that same thought process where you can give somebody all the tools, but they have to choose to take the tools. I can't force somebody to live in a house. I can't.
So I want to say something real quick. So when you go to do something and you accomplish it, it builds that self-efficacy to face things that you didn't think you could do. And so when the human is faced on a platform or an opportunity that they have a decision to make, to either better or help themselves, they have to exercise courage.
That's right.
Yeah. Trust and faith in something that they can do that. And when they experience, a week with us, a lot of them have said that you have empowered me to face a lot of the journey that I have in front of me when I go home. Well, we hear that after they leave and come back and said, you've helped me, and so
they're reflecting. I mean, they're looking back now. I think it's that mentality. It took me a while to realize that you could smile and have fun in life and that you only live on this planet one time, right? We're not going to get a respawn, but man, just how enlightening it is when it hits and you just go, wow. So, and that's what I find so valuable about what Operation Surf does in general is you're giving somebody the tools to learn that through a system and other people versus hopefully one day learning it on their own, which you've learned on your own, through your own experiences, but not everybody does that, right? Some people go. We do have a question here for you, Van. And Nate, if you can do me a favor, pull up the webpage. Jess asked, how do I get connected with Operation Surf? Do you want them just going to the website and hitting you guys up to contact us form, or is there another way that you'd prefer folks to reach out to you?
Well, you could reach out in our website. We have info@operationsurf.org that you could reach out and ask some questions, and it'll get relayed to whatever question that you have. There's connected with, there's being a participant, and then there's there's being part of our team. And so there's so many different things. God, this topic right now it's I only see that we have a few more minutes, but there's so many needs in the village, so to speak, is like you were explaining it, Jim, on the process of how many different people it takes to solve the overall challenges of the situation of the warrior. But we all do our one part. And as we all do our one part together, we could all, find a better opportunity to, have a joyful life, so to speak, and so what I've learned by doing this and running this organization, there is so much more that I need to do. And my type of mind is I want to do it all.
Yeah.
So the question that he just asked is the opportunities are very small, but do reach out. And if there's a chance that we can get you into our programs, if that's going to be your question, please do. I don't want to make this, we can't do it without other people because we are a nonprofit. So there's many ways to get involved. So
absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things for everybody listening, we talk, I think NCOA, so it's not Commissioned Officer Association, actually a little outside of this conversation, but actually is going to close their doors, which is just unbelievable to me because that organization is what powered non-commissioned officers in the military. And then after, And part of the reason that they're closing the doors is because people aren't as generous as they used to be, right? So part of the reason that we do this as an organization is like nonprofits often step in to help folks with things that other people are not helping, right? We find a gap. It's the best way to think about it. We find a gap and we do everything we can to fill that gap to make sure people live a productive life, whoever those people, whether you're an MPO, VSO, whatever else. So organizations like, VAN and Operation Surf, one of the first and best ways you guys can support is you go to the website. For a cup of coffee, man, you donate $5, right? It's not that much. Look, all of us spend money that we don't have to spend on a lot of things, right? Like we just do. And we understand not everybody has it, but if you have it, that's the first way. What Van's politely saying, they have small opportunities because they need more funding to help do more. And what I can tell you is their program absolutely works. I'm telling you, like I know multiple people, probably 40, 50 people that have gone through this that are war fighters, the hardest of the hardest that I've seen come back, and they are new people. Like they care, like everything about them is what you would want. And you know that they need, because you see it in them. So I am thankful for organizations like Operation Surf. And I've donated, so you guys should donate as well. It's the right thing to do. Jim, did you have anything else for you?
All to know that, I don't like saying no to anybody, because you never know what is going to change the trajectory of someone's life and saving a life. And we've had many people come to our program that said that they were going to take their life, but after coming to our program, they want to live and they're inspired to live again, which is hope. And so that's basically what it's all about. And so just trust me, as the founder of this stuff, I do not want to quit. I will not quit. And I will continue this mission, to be able to help change people's lives one wave at a time.
I love that.
Very, very well. Well, we appreciate the relationship with you, Van. We're thankful for everything you guys do. You guys have been a huge part of the coalition.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you guys in, I think, November timeframe. So we're looking to come into California with you guys and hang out and see other VSOs and MPOs in that area. So Thank you for coming out today, Van.
Thank you, Van.
Very much.
All right. Jim, that's it. We hit the time here. So I want to pass it over to you for any final words that you may have.
Yeah. I'm energized every day when I get up and do this job and talk to people like Van and Ray and other organizations, and we do our symposiums. There's so much opportunity for us to make a difference in this world and leave it better than we found it. And that's what energizes, I think, all of us. That's why we joined the service. That's why we're involved with nonprofits. We want to leave this world a little bit better than we found it. There's a lot of opportunity for us to all get involved. And when you think about the challenges, but the opportunities that veteran support organizations have, and some of the great work that they're doing, no one's going to fix those issues or take advantage of those opportunities to build veterans up and help them with transitions and help them out of homelessness and getting them to Operation Surf. Only veterans are going to do that. We're the only ones that are going to fix and address veterans issues. It's not some outside organization. It's not some big corporation. And it's not the government. They have a role to play, but it's really our ownership of it. And when you think about 18 million veterans, plus their families, but let's just say 18 million veterans, $1 to any one of these organizations across the board would have a significant impact. Or get involved. Share the information with someone else. Get involved with your community. That's the way we're going to move the needle and continue to serve our country in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's do whatever you can do to be a positive force for others, and you could save somebody's life. I mean, it's literally that easy. So everybody here, thank you guys so much for your service to our great nation. We thank you guys for the family members, as always. Thank you guys for letting us borrow your loved ones during their time in service. We will be back. I think we mentioned earlier, we'll be back in May. That's May 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know I've had a couple comments about backing this back up into lunchtime. That way you guys can see it during your lunch times for Eastern Standard Time. We'll look at that and see if that makes sense. That way it's 11 a.m. CST, and then of course 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But as always, appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys on the next one.